Hey, welcome back to the show, Total Financial Solutions, Safer Money Hour. Arif Halaby along with Jeff Gerard, your family's financial services center, right? That's Total Financial Solutions radio show. That's us every week at this time. We're talking about your family's finances, getting out of debt, managing your money. So what are we, somewhere around making sure you don't get into debt, plan for your future. And by the way, retirement is a part of that, remember? Sometimes people will put that off. I know we were speaking with somebody recently who said, I took on Parent Plus loans, which is the parent obligation of a loan, and their daughter actually decided not to go to college, or she went to college, but not to get a job in the field. So everything's done. $120,000 later, daughter's a wonderful person, stay-at-home mom. All that's great, very tough job, no question about it. And meanwhile, the parents are now in their late 60s and have to pay back this loan.
Wow.
And you realize that they can actually take some of your Social Security. If you can't afford to pay it, they will garnish your wages, your pension, your Social Security. They'll even take money from you, from your retirement accounts. So it's nice that you're saving, and that's really what we're talking about here. But what happens if you leave behind your other spouse? Because Parent Plus loans are not for just one person, right? It's usually husband and wife. So meanwhile, you're saving up your retirement life. You're in your 50s, maybe even your 60s, and you have 1 or 2 or 3 children whom you've signed their loan guarantees, and because of all that stress, God forbid, you may have passed away.
That's right.
Who has to pay that? Called your wife? Your husband? These don't just disappear. Even when the student passes away, sometimes these loans don't go away. In fact, I've never heard of one going away when the student passes away. So these loans have to be paid back sooner or later. Somebody has to take care of those. So what we're speaking about is a life insurance policy where you can build in maybe 2 different types, maybe layering. You have one that's, okay, just until we get this last one through college, or just until we, build up our retirement account. So you may have what's called a term insurance, which is where you can buy a lot of insurance for a very little amount of money. And there it's broken down usually into different terms, different time frames.
That's right. So you think about this, you can take a look at how long you think it might take you to pay this loan back. Not saying, okay, when times are good, we're going to pay this back in 5 years or 10 years. Maybe you have an extended term and you can pay it off in a longer amount of time, and where you have this kind of baseline payment that you would get, that you would make payments on. But when times are good, maybe you can accelerate that. Wonderful. But take the longest time that you think you would be on the hook for this loan, and then whether it's 10 years or 15 or 20 years, whatever that is, to pay it back, I would really strongly suggest taking out a term policy that matches that term. Now, if you pay it off early, fantastic. Insurance can be canceled just about any time, so it's pretty flexible. But I like that you have a baseline protection. And Arif, we've seen this a lot of times. The parents are taking it on from a credit standpoint sometimes. Maybe the student has maxed out all the loans that they can personally get, so to extend that and have more money available for the education, the parents take that on. Sometimes it's a cost thing, and the student says, look, I can only afford to pay back so much, so the parents take that payment on. What I've seen is where the cost of the term policy, the term insurance policy, the life insurance, is so minimal that the student could say, oh, I can afford $20, $30, $50, $60 a month versus the hundreds of dollars for the student loan. So there might be a trade-off there where the parent's paying off some of the loan, or at least their obligation, and the student can pay for the term. So now you have a little bit of strategy there, you have some protection, and you have a plan. And I like having that, at least for the amount of time that you're obligated to pay that back.
Look, both Jeff and I are parents, and we understand that there's that connection that we have with our kids where we sit down and we say, look, we're going to do anything for you. You did your part and went to school and got those good grades, and you got into that amazing university. I understand that. But I also want you to understand reality. It's nice that you can say anything you want. Oh, I'm going to jump off this building and fly. Just because you said it and you really, really meant it and you thought it was true and you dressed like a superhero and all of that stuff looked good, it doesn't mean you're going to beat gravity.
Yeah.
The economics of your age, the amount of money you have saved, the bills you've acquired, your expenses, may not equal, and I will pay for any college you can get into conversation. So if you are working on trying to save for college, there's a very small chance you're going to die before your daughter or son finishes, the last one finishes college. Very, very small chance. But it does happen.
Sure.
And most people probably know somebody who has passed away or whose parents have passed away way too early, 50s, 60s, 40s. And that's a dangerous time frame because it isn't just emotionally impactful for young kids and a family and a surviving spouse, but it's also financially impactful. For $20, $30, $50 a month, you can create a legacy through the insurance system, life insurance, if you're reasonably healthy, that can last forever. And that is a very sad part that's missing in most Americans. Because, look, it's really rare that it happens, but when it does, it's devastating. Without the proper protection, it's devastating to a family. So what I think is you have to build in a planning system in your financial life that says, I have $1 that comes in, it goes to retirement. I have $1 that comes in, it goes to my car insurance. I have $1 that comes in and it goes to my child's college. And then I have $1 that comes in, it goes to life insurance. So that gives you a foundation because, look, we've all seen it. We've seen it where, I've had my uncle passed away in his late 40s and he left 3 kids. My cousin was my age when he passed away, which was in our late teens. And I saw how much it affected my cousin. Even to this day, that's 30 years ago. Even to this day, his life is different because he had to work 2 jobs and couldn't finish school and had to do certain things just because his dad passed away of a heart attack in his late 40s. I think it was 49. Right? Like they say, if you have a heart attack in your 40s, your heart hasn't built up the arteries to go around it yet, the ancillary ones. So usually they're devastating. Usually there's a 1-2 punch and you're gone.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, the same heart attack or in the same region of your body, in your 60s, 70s, or 80s, people survive and they get heart bypass and they can do okay. But in his particular case, it was one event and he wasn't with us. So had the family had $300,000, $500,000, back then, $250,000 would have changed their life. It would have paid off a house and allowed the kids to finish college and all of that. So it doesn't take a whole lot to be able to balance somebody's financial life. For I don't know what is a 50-year-old with term insurance for $1 million. $60 a month?
Could be something like that.
Yeah, $50 to $70 a month, depending on your health.
Mm-hmm.
So the conversation is, yes, you have to do it. Yes, it's a yucky conversation. Nobody wants to say, oh, great, I'm going to be rich when you die. Sign here, honey. All right, that's not the conversation, but you have to protect your family. You and me, when we said, and we're going to have children, said, by default, we are going to take care of them. And when you die, whose kids are they still? Are they going to say, this person wasn't my dad? This person wasn't my mom? You're their parent forever.
Right.
So it doesn't change when you die. They don't say, and now I don't have a dad. He said, just, I did, but my dad passed away. So there's a legacy and a piece in their heart that will remember you, either in a good way or in a kind of a resentful way, because I've seen it.
We have. And I think if you're going to at least take this conversation seriously and look for the minimal expense to you, take a term policy, 10 years, 15 years. It doesn't have to be 20, 25, 30, 40 years. We've seen in some cases. Take it out just as long as we've seen to get our kids through college, at least out on their own, so that they don't go back and say, wow, for a few dollars a month, because they're going to find out what it may be not right after your funeral, but they're going to find out at some point how inexpensive insurance can be for the general market. So you have to really take a look at, what we're saying here is that for pennies sometimes, and just for dollars a month, you can create a protection plan that doesn't create resentment. You have someone that has a chance, because we've seen it so many times. Someone in their 40s can develop, a very deadly terminal cancer, and leaves a large family behind. You actually turned me on to this, Arif. Many years ago, you said, "Oh wow, you have this many kids and no life insurance," and it hadn't even dawned on me because I was so busy running the race, right? Trying to make money, trying to pay the bills, trying to figure everything out. And when we say we're going to figure it out, that usually means we don't have any idea what we're doing. And so it takes someone from the outside to say, okay, look, you've insured your car, right? You've insured your health. You didn't insure your kids or your family if you passed away. We insure our houses. So all these material things kind of don't really matter if the breadwinner goes away, because there's that emotional impact. And oh, by the way, the rent's still due. We're sorry about your loss. We really are. The light company still needs their money. The water. You just think about this. Life has to go on, and if that can't be sustained, not only did they lose a loved one, in this case maybe their mom or dad, if you're talking about the kids, but then they might have to move. And things change, so lights get shut off.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
They lose their friends. They lose their house. They lose their comfort of their bed and the familiarity. It's a bigger impact emotionally than just financially,
right?
For the kids, because they don't understand the financial part as much. They just see the results of the lack of planning,
right?
Or the results of the financial, if I may, incompetence that we had when we trusted and respected our automobile before our own life. Even if your car or your house is paid off, you still have property taxes. You still have homeowners insurance. You still have maintenance. You can have a wonderful car. It doesn't matter how new it is. You might need a water pump. You might need new tires, right? Those things are not cheap, and it doesn't happen overnight. You have to learn how to save for those things, and life insurance is a part of that. Well, Jeff, we were speaking a little bit about some of the conversation that we've run into when we come up with the plus loans, the parent loans. One of the things that I've seen time and again, people will think that their retirement account is enough. I have $500,000. That's great. It's in my retirement account. Wonderful. Has it been taxed yet? Oh, it hasn't. Okay, so the $500,000 has not been taxed yet, and that $500,000 is going to go to your wife or your husband or your children, and now you have just imposed in them a much higher ultimate tax bracket, where the money that you've given them is now going to push their other income at a much higher taxable income level. So that's a wonderful gift, and thank you. But if your goal was to give them that $500,000 and they only net $250 or $300, maybe, just maybe, a life insurance policy that is taxable,
tax-free.
100% tax-free.
That's right. From federal or state under current law. And that means that when you get that money as a beneficiary, if there are other monies that are coming to you, whether it's income or other inherited money, like an IRA or 401k, that's not part of that equation. You're always going to want to check with a tax professional. You're always going to want to have now a team. Let's say you had nothing, you didn't have two nickels to rub together, but you inherit money, tax-free or not, you're going to want to have a financial team, because there are other parts of the conversation to be had. But I'm telling you, if you take a look at someone saying, okay, I have two kids and I'm going to give one of them my 401k and one of them my rental property, or one of them my rental property and one of them my life insurance, I can tell you that down the road, if it's 401k or life insurance, one of them is going to not like you very much when they inherit that money, because one of them is going to give half of it away to taxes and the other one's going to say, oh, I got to keep all of it. And oh, by the way, it cost us pennies on the dollar to provide that life insurance. So I think it's a conversation that's missing in a lot of people's finances. It's surprising to me, Arif, I have to ask you this, how often you're seeing it where life insurance is not present in someone that looks like they're a sophisticated investor, they've saved a lot of money, they have this full boat financial idea of what their life is going to look like, and yet they don't have an iota of life insurance in their portfolio. And
I believe it's often because it's such an uncomfortable part of a conversation. And here's where I've seen it. It used to be called death insurance.
Interesting.
Right? Death insurance. And there was such a hard time. People wouldn't buy it.
Can you imagine
No
why?
joke. That's exactly.
Wow.
So marketing was tough. What do we have to do? And can you imagine, somebody sitting in a boardroom, who knows, and the second floor of some office building in the middle of downtown, who knows where.
Right.
Maybe in the early, late 1800s, I don't know, whenever the name changed. And they said, I got it. I got the idea. Yes, son. Let's hear it from the junior member of the team. Well, I think we should call it life insurance. And everybody chuckles, except the CEO. He probably, maybe she, but he stands there, says, son, you're the new vice president. Because the name life insurance is true. It protects your life. You don't say accident insurance, you say car insurance.
Yeah.
You don't say fire burned, home burning insurance. You say homeowner's insurance. Now, look, it's still fire insurance for your home.
Right.
Right? It's still death insurance for your life. But look, sometimes people have these plans at work, Jeff. We see this often where they have a life insurance plan and they think that plus my retirement account is enough. If I pass away, my wife will receive this money. Or if I pass away, my husband will receive this money. And that's enough for them to pay off the house and to get started. And by the way, she's cute, so she'll probably remarry anyway. And I always say, okay, look, you have 3 children and a lot of debt. You tell me what kind of guy is going to want to walk in and be a part of that. 3 minor children, 2 minor children. It's not the kind of man that they don't, I'm not saying they don't exist, but if she's desperate and has to choose, it's probably not the best option. It's probably the first option.
Yeah. So I think taking a look at some of those workplace retirement plans, you might see this. You might have a company that provides you a 401k or a retirement plan. They might provide your health insurance by that same company. They might do your payroll, and they might say, oh, by the way, if you want to this free life insurance, sometimes they offer a baseline of like $50,000, which is still a lot of money. But a lot of cases, some people will pay a few bucks more each month. And I just saw this recently. We were looking at some of the numbers to see what made sense for a family member of mine. They were changing providers, and there was a box to check. If you would like to buy more insurance, you can do that. Well, that's fantastic because sometimes it seems pretty inexpensive, and oh, by the way, they take it out of my paycheck, and I don't have to worry about it or think about it. But there's sometimes a string attached there. If that company decides, your company, your employer decides, we're not going to have that company anymore, we're going to fire them. We're going to hire somebody else. Do those benefits stay intact? Can you transfer that? Is that a portable life insurance policy? So you want to think about some of these things because as Arif illustrated, you might be building your life around everything that's contingent upon you working for your employer. And you leave and no problem, the money in your 401k, you can roll that over. No problem. But your life insurance, your health insurance, what does that have as an effect on you financially and your family? So I think a lot of those things, because they're on the fringe, they don't get the same respect or attention that maybe a place where you're putting in active dollars like a 401k, that's usually a big part of the conversation. So I just invite you to take a look at all of those pieces because when you're dead, none of this matters to you. But it matters to everybody what you did before the music stopped.
And what they say is they have a conversation about what it is about your memory. You have been around. You remember Uncle so-and-so? Boy, that son of a gun was this. He was great at that. You remember Aunt Mary, man, the way she cooked and the way she led her team at her... What are they talking about? They're talking about a memory.
Right.
If part of that memory is, man, Uncle Joe, what a son of a gun. Mary had to sell the farm. She had to sell the house. She had to sell the business. The real estate at a fire sale. He couldn't have picked a worse time to die because the economy's in a slump. Nobody wants to buy the properties, but she needs it to pay the taxes. So she had to sell them for pennies on the dollar.
Right.
Oh, that's a great idea. Right? So don't think that it's just because one of you passes away that who cares? I've had it where people say, I don't really care. I'm like, sir, but you're married with children. He said, doesn't matter. I don't really care.
He's like, yeah, my wife's cute.
Well, he actually said they didn't really care.
Wow. Oh,
you know what he said? They said the kids kind of don't visit and don't really care. My wife and I kind of don't really get along. I'd prefer to just do whatever I want to do. I don't care.
Wow.
I was like, whoa, spend it all, buddy. Make a lot of friends for at least 10 minutes.
Wow.
Then you'll end up, being... remembered in a poorer way, but most people look, especially if you don't have a faith that follows down the road. I'm going to be in heaven, or or someplace, right? If they think they're just going to burn up and disappear, then I guess maybe that is one of the options, is to just create a who cares attitude. But
Yeah.
if you have people that you love, then and you just here's a secret. Ready? I'm not going to tell you. I'll just tell a couple of you. If you don't really care about your family and you just want to spend your money when so you don't really care, just do it now. Live now. If they're not your family when you die, then they're not really your family now. So go do whatever you want. But Arif, I have obligations. Well, those don't change. The obligations are still there. All right, here's some things that I want to talk about. As we finish up this hour of the program, we're going to come back in a few minutes. I want to get into one of the mistakes that people make about buying, leasing cars, building debt, creating wealth, right? That next phase, and how does that impact retirement? What about taking debt into retirement? We'll go over 3 different types real quick. So it's going to be kind of a lightning round. When we come back, 3 different types of debt you're going to take into retirement. The good, the bad, and the ugly with it. We got that and a whole lot more. I'm Arif Halaby, and this is Jeff Gerard. And we'll be right back on Total Financial Solutions Safer Money Hour on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. All right, welcome back to the show, Total Financial Solutions Safer Money Hour. How do you make sure that you retire in a way that you can enjoy life? A lot of times people will almost kind of hurry the last year or 2 of their working years so that they can buy things, refinance debts, redo the mortgage. They'll often go through and they'll say, look, we're going to be in this house for a very long time, especially if it's a single story, or there are residence quarters down below, meaning a master bathroom and a bedroom. Even a private little sitting area would be awesome. You might have an upstairs, and when you're younger, you can do those stairs all day long. But for a lot of people, that house is a place that they're going to live for quite a long time, maybe even the rest of their life. So what they'll do is they'll say, okay, now is the time to refinance the mortgage, get a less of a payment, stretch it out for 30 years. I know we're never going to pay this thing off. We're basically renting, but at least we have an equity stake in this position here, meaning if it goes up in value, we can participate in some of those profits. And they're saying, okay, we're going to do the backyard. We've always wanted a pool. We're going to do a barbecue. We always wanted a patio. We're going to do that. And they go in and maybe put new drapes and flooring and whatever it is that they're going to do. Windows, more efficient, solar. And that can add up to big, big dollars. I have seen sometimes people double their mortgage, and it was only for $180 more a month. Okay, hey, if that works for you. But just understand that if you're going to take a house payment into and through retirement, that the payment is what matters. Of course, the interest rate, but the payment, meaning that if the objective is to go through this process and to say, as I am doing this, I want to build a place for me and my wife or husband to live forever. Great. But be very careful. I have seen this debt taken into retirement, just finished up, beautifully done. Right? Remember, we've been doing this 20 years now this June. All done. Everything's great. And your son gets a job in Seattle, and your daughter marries an ophthalmologist in I don't know, Houston. Or your son decides to, get a job as a fellow at some institute at MIT, and now he's married and he has children, and they all moved to Denver, and you're living in California. So, what is the most important thing when you retire? It isn't your time; it's your family, especially your grandkids. I've heard it. I get it. My kids, when they walk into the room, my parents light up like they never did when we walked into the room. We walked into the room, especially as teenagers. They're like, all right, what do you want? Who wants the keys to the car and how much money? Today it's just, oh my gosh, we're going to go take the kids shopping. I'm like, are you kidding? We never went shopping. We go shopping once per year. Sorry.
That's right.
I'm regressing. But that taking through retirement, if it's a single story house, if you have the ability to travel, especially if grandkids and family are close by, then that is an okay debt to take through retirement, provided that you understand that payment is something that will be with you forever. Now, here's what I like about it. That payment better be fixed, meaning if it's a $1,400 a month payment or $2,700 a month payment, that's it. because in the next 10, 15, 20 years, expect inflation to go through the roof. And when it does, your payment is still $1,400 or $2,700 a month. You understand? So it doesn't go away. It's a great opportunity for you to build a place for you and your family to live. Okay, so that's the house. What's the next one?
Well, a car is something that everybody's going to want to have. I mean, aside from living in maybe New York City, downtown Manhattan, where people walk everywhere, I think I've heard it said that people are foolish if they have a car in certain parts of New York.
Yeah.
But especially on the West Coast here, everybody loves to take drives up and down the coast. They like to drive to the next state over and go, have some entertainment things and drive all over the place. People like to drive when they're retired, right? Because it takes time to do that. And so they say, we're going to take a drive to the Grand Canyon. We're going to take a drive to, you name it. So you're going to have a car. You're going to have the expenses that come with it. That's car insurance, especially if you live in California. You're going to have registration fees. You're going to have to put gas, maintenance, all those things. So why not make it something that, because what do people want to do? This is probably the last car we're going to buy. Really? Do you think you're going to want to make the same payment on a car 5 years from now when you see the brand new, 2 years from now when you see that brand new model going across you pull up at the stoplight and you go, oh gosh, I'm paying $450 a month for a car that's 3 years old, and you see the newest model pull up next to you. Would you make that same payment for that car given the opportunity to trade for a new one? Well, I think what we do is we have this plan in mind that we're going to have the same car for the next 5 or 10 years. And then what happens?
Well, think of it this way. Look, your hips are going to have a problem if you bought the 4-wheel drive.
Yeah.
The 2-seater sports car, which, hey, I want one. Maybe someday I'll get one.
They're
Once my last is done with college, I'm going to get the little red convertible. That's great. But
good.
How hard is it to get in and out of those things when you are 55, 65, 75 years old? It changes, especially if you now expect to have a caregiver and you're now getting in the back seat or the front seat or your walkers. So if you have a car and you're going to take that through retirement, that car payment, make sure it's versatile enough to whatever potential ailments that may affect you or your spouse, that you understand and take into account that is a part of, you may always have a car payment. You may always be somebody who is going through this process of paying a car because I needed a bigger car. Oh, wait, the grandkids. I want a minivan so I can take my 10 grandchildren to Disneyland or to Magic Mountain. I want a minivan so that I can take and pick up my 2 grandkids and their soccer team and go see the recital right? You understand? So what didn't matter to you at one point, it may change. So be careful taking a big car payment through retirement, meaning you may have to get another one and another one. All right, last one I want to cover, and it's going to be real quick, is an RV. People love their recreational vehicles. If you are somebody that is used to traveling in an RV, fantastic. But if you never have, and this happened to one of our clients here at one point, in fact, they've done it twice, and now they lost the RV. They bought an RV. They were never into RVing before. They didn't understand it. They didn't know how to drive it. They drove big trucks. I mean, he had a business that had a larger vehicle, but how about that truck? How about the RV? How about driving it? So if you want to become an RV person, then go rent one. Figure it out. See what you like and don't like. Don't just pick up at age 62 and say, now we're buying an RV and traveling around the country. You may not like it.
Good
and
point.
Yet you're on the hook for a $100,000 vehicle or more that is going to cost you thousands and thousands of dollars a year.
And then where are you going to put it?
The storage is a whole other conversation. You make sure that you have the space for it. Look, you can go to hometownstation.com, click on Total Financial Solutions. That's myself and Jeff. We're here to help you. If you have questions, comments, we'd love to take them, and sometimes we answer those emails on the air. Thanks for listening. Arif Halaby, Jeff Gerard on Total Financial Solutions Safer Money Hour. Next week, stay tuned. We have an amazing show planned for you and special guests through the entire month of March. Thanks for listening on AM 1220 KHTS.